Hello, everyone. I'm Roxana, and I'm so excited to have Tracey McBeath with us today, also known as the Health and Healing Coach, and someone I not only admire professionally, but also know personally. Tracey is joining us all the way from Melbourne, Australia today. She's a true powerhouse in the health and wellness space and wears so many hats. Mother of five, global health and life coach, personal trainer, podcaster, and author of two amazing books. And then there was this TED Talk, Becoming the Navigator of Your Own Life, where Tracy shared how we can make control of our lives and our health. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend checking it out. Her own journey towards health is truly inspiring. After being diagnosed with fatty liver, prediabetes, and Hashimoto's at 40, she completely transformed her life and overcoming sugar and alcohol addiction and processed food dependency. Now, at almost 51, she is healthier and more full of energy than ever. Today, she is here to share her presentation, Closing the Knowing Doing Gap. I'm really looking forward to this presentation. Tracey, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Just while I share my screen.
All right, I'm going to mute myself and you take it away.
Thanks, Roxana. Well, it's actually a pleasure, absolute pleasure to be here with you all. I'm hugely honoured to have been asked to be a part of it. And I thank you, Roxana, for putting all this together, and for Florence, who's the main, leader behind all of this. Having organised online summits myself and in-person ones, I know how much work goes on behind the scenes. So really, really grateful. So thank you very much. But to you, the watcher, the true hero, before I get into my presentation, I just wanted to really say thank you for showing up. It takes a huge amount of courage to really want to change and to really, to heal from all the things that we know really in our heart are damaging us. And, in a world where sugar is just so adored and it's very, very difficult to escape, it does take a huge amount of courage to go on this path. So you're here. These types of events are just hugely inspiring, and there's so much information in them, but don't let yourself get overwhelmed. My advice is to kind of just take it slowly to go through. And even if you take one or two key points from the speakers and give yourself time to put it into practice, that will be hugely helpful for you. If you get really overwhelmed, you're likely to put it all aside and throw it away. Don't do that, because it's well worth your time and effort to put into practice these things slowly. So today I'm going to share just a few things around, how I personally closed the gap between knowing and doing, and how now I help many of my clients do that as well. And it's not an easy path, and it is a path that requires you to make consistent effort, and it's challenging. If you come across someone that says this is easy, I wouldn't listen to them. It isn't easy, and there will be times where you will have many setbacks. You'll fall over, you'll make mistakes, you'll fall back into your habits. But that's all part of the path, and that's all part of the journey. So let me just touch a little bit on me. Roxana did an amazing introduction. But that was me at 39, just before I turned 40. And not long after that, I was told I had all these things going on. And I was a mum of four then. I did go on and have another child, but it really rocked my world. I had a lot to live for. At that point, I really wasn't living for me. I was living for my kids. And it really was the instigator that took me down a path to think, hey, what's going on? What am I missing? Clearly there's something going on. So I am a full-time metabolic health and life coach and around my kids. I run groups, both membership groups and long-term support groups, and I do take one-on-one clients. At 39, I was 18 kilos heavier than I am now. I'll just quickly go through that because Roxana has touched on that. Along with being very dependent on alcohol and sugar, I didn't know who I am. As I said, I was very, very lost. And I am 51 now, and I am a healthy weight. I no longer have any of these conditions that I was diagnosed with. I'm not dependent on sugar and alcohol. I haven't eaten sugar for 8 years, and I've certainly found a beautiful peace with that. All of that has no control or power over me anymore. Alcohol took me a little longer. It did take it's been 2 years since I had a drink. And I think I'll put my hand on my heart and tell you honestly, I fell into the trap of moderation. And it is a trap to think that we can moderate something that is so profoundly powerful on our brain. But that's all part of the learning too. So I'm super proud to not stand here, but I'm sitting here in front of you to say that I know who I am and I am the navigator of my own life. And there is nothing, more that I love doing more than helping others find that path as well. So this is all a part of breaking up with sugar, alcohol, and processed foods. You get to find yourself in this process, because what we don't really realize is when we are locked in consuming all that stuff, it really is taking us away from our best self. It's taking us away from the present moment. And it really, for so many of us, it's a crux to just navigating life. And for me, it was all about, that was my only answer to stress. I didn't have any other answers to navigating life and to deal with all the incredible array of emotions that come with living life. Now I do. I now know that I have that within me, and you have it within you too. But you have to do the hard part of giving up all that stuff to find that first. So you can't do this alone. And, this is the motto of my Art of Thriving group. You can't do this alone, yet you alone must be the one to do this. So please, if you're sitting there thinking that you have to do this alone, that you're too ashamed to reach out to a support group, you're too ashamed to connect with a community, please overcome that, because it is very, very, very difficult to go down this path on your own. But as I've said, you absolutely do have to be the one to do the work. No one's with you in your head, and no one's with you at those times when the sugar cravings hit. You have to be the one to do it. But having the power of support and community around you and the tools to help you navigate that, you will absolutely get where you want to be. So who watching this knows mostly, I say mostly because there is a lot of misinformation around out there, and these kind of programs and courses really do help you really learn the true information, but we generally know what requires to have good metabolic health. So no one would argue that eating processed foods is healthy. No one would think eating too much sugar and carbohydrates is healthy. But what about sitting inside on a computer all day? What about drinking alcohol every day? Do you think constant high levels of stress is healthy? What about sitting and scrolling all day on a phone? What about binge watching Netflix and not going to bed for a good sleep? What about being isolated, alone, and having no nourishing relationships? So my guess, because when I've asked this in the past, most people will put up their hands and say, yes, I know that all of those things I need to navigate in order to have good metabolic health. So you probably do know that. The question is, if you know this, why don't you do it? And this is the perennial question. Many of us intellectually know that eating too much sugar, drinking too much alcohol, doing all those things are not good for our long-term optimal health. And yet we don't bridge that gap between knowing and doing. And that's what I'm hopefully going to help you do today. But I want to really flip it on its head, because generally what we do is we get caught up in thinking, oh, maybe I just don't know enough, because if I learn more, then it'll just automatically change my behavior. It's unfortunately an illusion. It isn't how it works. Now, don't get me wrong. Knowledge is incredibly important, and we do need the knowledge. And we do need to understand how the choices we are making are impacting our health. But most of the time, though, especially when it comes to sugar and alcohol, I put them together because they do act the same on the brain. So if you're trying to give up sugar yet you're still drinking, I would encourage you to put them in the same boat, because they absolutely do work the same in the brain. So we know the knowledge of harm they are doing. And if you didn't before you started this summit, I guarantee you by the time you got to me on day 7, you absolutely know this information. And yet, perhaps you're finding it hard to stop, or perhaps you've known for years that this stuff is harming you, yet you still haven't found a way to stop. So why is this? Is it the fact that they are highly addictive? Well, absolutely, yes. In part, that is true. But in my experience, it's much more about the fact that we have a very deep attachment to these things that live deep in our subconscious. And we have thoughts and beliefs attached to a deep value of what these things give us. And it's no surprise given that sugar is what we are given very, very young. It is at everything that is good in our lives, every celebration, every birthday, every wedding, every christening, every event, it is there. So there is no surprise that we have a subconscious belief that that brings us something good. And then if you were anything like me when you were growing up, if you felt sad, if you hurt yourself, then sugar was given to you to placate you, to help you feel better. So there will be some very deep beliefs around this stuff, bringing you something that is comforting and something that is loving. And that then is that it leads to a real disconnect, because if you intellectually know this stuff is different, yet your subconscious mind has a belief that says, hey, this thing is love. These foods are a part of, my joy and a part of my comfort. Well, there is a big disconnect going on there. And that's what needs changing. That deep subconscious story. It's almost like there is a war going on. And until that disconnect is bridged and we have the same belief in our subconscious as our conscious mind, it will always be difficult to give up those things and find freedom from them. Because that subconscious story, it will win out every single time. And the reason that is because I'm going to show you deeper, as we go along in this presentation. But that subconscious mind is extremely powerful. And when we get busy in our day navigating things, thinking about all the things we've got to do, thinking about all the jobs, all the appointments, all the this, all the that, our subconscious mind is quietly in the background navigating things. And I don't know if you've ever realized or caught yourself halfway through eating a bowl of ice cream, or halfway through drinking a glass of wine, or halfway through even something like driving somewhere. If you've got somewhere you drive to regularly, how many times have you got there and you've thought, oh, I actually don't remember the drive? Well, that's because your conscious mind was extremely busy. And when it gets busy, those subconscious stories start navigating the show. So we need to change those stories. And unfortunately, that's where the difficulty comes in, because that requires effort on your part. And it's something that doesn't happen overnight. But I am living, breathing proof. So is Roxana. And so is now the hundreds of people that I've helped to really close this gap and change the story and move the value from outside of you back into you, where it absolutely belongs. So, I want to talk a little bit about probably, what we tend to think when we hear about this is, oh gosh, it's just willpower. I can't stop eating this stuff. I can't stop drinking because I lack the willpower. So I just really want to set the record straight that is absolutely nothing to do with willpower. You do not lack discipline. What it is a sense of your physiology, so your brain, and your brain chemistry is extremely powerful, but also it's really born of a misunderstanding of how we work as human beings. And if we think that we change this stuff by just white knuckling our way through it, by just using more willpower, or by getting someone to in a sense walk behind me and tell me what to do all the time, it's unfortunately not the way to go, and it's exhausting. So we can white knuckle our way through any change for a week or two, and I guarantee you many of you watching this will have tried to probably give up sugar. And how long's it lasted? I think you have to see that there is so much more to this than just simply using your will, because that will only last as long as your will lasts. And for, I don't know about you, but for me, being a human being, it doesn't last very long at all. So that's why we need to look beyond all of that and really understand what is going on. So the reason in terms of the work I do and what I've seen that we struggle with this is actually, as I said, a misunderstanding of our humanness. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You do not need fixing. You are not broken. What you seek is already within you. It is just really understanding how we work and then tapping into that, and doing the work to really, as I said, just put that transference of power from anything that lives outside of you back into you. And once you do that, then, things like words like motivation and willpower and all that stuff, they just don't even come into your world anymore, because you're the one navigating your life, and you are the one that gets to decide your choices every day, because you sit in a place of having access to conscious choice. Now, I didn't have that for most of my life. And I would say probably for the last only 7, 8 years of my life have I been able to say that I have been able to sit in a place like that. So it does take a long time. You need the awareness, and then you need the consciousness. And you really need to slow down to be able to put into place the practices that are going to allow you to see that in any moment of any day, you do have access to choice. But your job is to create the space and the awareness to really see that. And in the depths of my dependency on sugar and alcohol, someone said to me, Tracey, you have a choice, I would have laughed at them, because I did not have the awareness of choice. So if you resonate with that, stick with me along this presentation, and I really, really know I'm going to be able to show you how you can also create the awareness of choice. So this is the first tool I'm going to give you. And actually, this tool is something you can take with you anywhere in life. It's something that I created on my own journey, and it was something that really helped me. And it's called the Considering Cup. Now, we have to understand our mind a little bit to be able to utilize this tool. So maybe it's things I've said, or maybe it's other speakers have said something to you and your mind has instantly gone, oh, that's rubbish. That's not true. That's not me. I couldn't do that. I'm too old. I've tried too many times. I'm not disciplined enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. Blah, 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 blah. You will start to pay attention to all the things that your mind says. But let me tell you now that the things your mind says is not you. It is just habitual thought going round and round and round that you're grabbing onto. And when we understand our mind, we get to see, okay, wow, my mind instantly wants to dismiss anything that I don't already align with and I don't already believe. But as I said, what that's actually doing is keeping you locked in a belief. Your mind doesn't want you to change, because that is risky. And we have to kind of hack that a little bit by taking control of that, and by noticing every time your mind wants to dismiss something that somebody else says, or a new belief, like, for example, say fat doesn't make you fat, or that cholesterol is bad for you. How many beliefs? I don't know where you are on your health journey, but I'm sure there are many beliefs that you used to have that you now no longer have. Well, this really fast tracks this process. So when you start to notice it, whether it's through my presentation or anybody else's, write it down. Put it in your considering cup and just leave it there. And then give yourself a bit of space and time, and you can go back to it. And then you get to look at it with your conscious mind, and you get to decide whether that's worth your attention or not. But please stop immediately letting your mind decide for you what is worthy of your attention or not, because it isn't you, and it is limiting you on learning all the things that you need to learn to really take back control of your health. So I've touched on this, so I'll just skim through it. So basically, your mind is belief blind. It seeks to validate everything you know. So, for example, if you believe you can't do this, it will search for evidence of it everywhere. You'll have a setback and you'll go, see, I couldn't do it. And then what's the point? What else? So if you believe that change should happen overnight, when you don't achieve it overnight, you will think, oh, well, it's just not for me. I can't do it. All of these things are made up. All of these things are challengeable, but you need to be the one to take back control of that and use something like this powerful considering cup. So I'm going to move on because I've kind of gone through that. Yes. So if you haven't got a pen and paper, I'm sure you do. If you're watching this, grab a pen and paper and practice during my talk. How many things I say, does your mind want to dismiss, and put it in there and actually, use this opportunity to learn this new experience. So now I'm going to move on to just three things that are going to help you close this knowing doing gap. Now, you don't have to do all three things at once. And in fact, I highly recommend that you don't. I recommend that you sit and you listen, you write down, you use your considering cup, and at the end of the talk, have some time to reflect and just see what is one thing that is doable for you or looks doable for you, and experiment with it. So one is a stop. There is one thing I'm going to ask you to stop doing, and there are two things I'm going to ask you to start doing. Again, I'm not saying do it all today. I'm saying work towards these three things: one stop and two starts. But if you consciously, now when I say conscious, that means getting your mind to your body in the present moment, not letting it constantly be busy on your to-do list, not thinking about what happened yesterday, not thinking about what happened tomorrow, what thinking about going to happen next week, what thinking about what Johnny said to me, what's, blah, 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 blah. If you're constantly up in that, you are not in the present moment. So actually, that is an important practice, to be present in your day as much as you can. Wiggle your fingers, move your shoulders, wiggle your toes, look out at the birds, look into nature, be as present as you can. And in fact, if that's all you start doing, I guarantee you will slow down enough to let in the light to see your choice when it comes to your actions in each day. So, as I said, you can start with any of these and build on them. So the first one is a stop. To understand how to change behavior, we have to understand how it works, where it comes from. Why do we do what we do? Do we come pre-programmed? Well, I don't believe that we do. So to change behavior, you must change the thinking that you're acting on. Now, please don't read that as you have to change the thoughts that come into your head. That is not what I'm saying. And boy, that is exhausting and very tiring, and I do not recommend that at all. However, what I'm saying is that you absolutely can choose the thinking that you want to act on. So remember how I've said that, there's so many thoughts. Everyone has it. Busy, 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 busy. How much we are up in that is really a function of how aware we are of the present moment, right? So thoughts are coming through all the time. So I explain thoughts as like clouds going through the sky or buses that are going past. We don't have to get on every single one, right? They are options. And usually what you notice are the repetitive ones going through. So for me, 5 o'clock was acceptable. And from 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I was looking at the clock as to when I could open my bottle of wine. So my sugar eating always started with alcohol. That's how it looked for me. It may look different for you, but it was a thought. All I could do was wait for, yes, now it's acceptable. So part of my understanding of this, and when I learned this, and then when I started to put it into practice, I started to notice all those thinking, and I was like, oh, gee, that's not me. That's not even a thought that I need to act on. I can just let all that go, and I can be the one to decide which thoughts I want to pay attention to. So therefore, the first stop is stop paying attention to all the thoughts and feelings and urges. So thoughts, your feelings and your urges are a direct consequence of your thinking. Now, you may not be aware of your thinking. It might be subconscious, but it still comes from within you. And you cannot have a feeling or an urge without the thinking that is attached to it. They are thought in action, which are taking you away from your health goals. So did you know that most thoughts are habitual voices of the mind, and they are not you? And probably the most powerful quote that I ever read from a book, The Untethered Soul, years ago when I was on my healing journey, and I'm still on it, by the way, but when I really started out on consciously taking responsibility for my own health, this quote, there is nothing more important to true growth than realizing you are not the voice of the mind. You are the one who hears it, by Michael Singer. And that is so true. all those voices in your head that say you can't do it, you're not good enough, you're this, you're that. It's not you. They are just thought clouds. And you get to be the one to decide which ones you give your attention to. So you can choose what thinking that you act on. And you have a choice, but as I said, you may not feel it yet. And that is okay, because I didn't either. And many of my clients, when they start with me, don't either. But the process is practicing and creating that space of awareness to see that you do, and getting present in your day and really becoming aware that, everything you do, every choice you make is not a consequence of anything out there. It's not a consequence of what anyone says to you or what anyone does. It is a consequence of the thinking that you are acting on. So here is just another little tool. So I've got a few of my best tools I'm sharing with you today. This is a little tool that is going to help you create awareness. So once you have gotten present to the present moment, you've wiggled your fingers, you've wiggled your toes, you've taken some deep breaths, you've gotten actually your head into your body. With awareness, you can use something like this to really help you see that in any moment that you get to make a choice that's either taking you towards or away the metabolic health that you want. So what happens is we tend to make all these choices. For example, my day for many, many years started out the same way. I'd wake up early, filled with shame, filled with regret from the drinking and the eating the night before. And, I'd all the familiar thoughts of, oh, well, today's going to be the day. Today's going to be the day I'm going to do it. And it wasn't. And for years, it just never changed until I started to understand this stuff. But what I didn't know, which I know really, really well now, is that before I make any decision, before you make any decision, there will be a whole myriad of thoughts and feelings and emotions, urges coming up within you. Now, if we don't have awareness of that, and if we don't choose to slow down and stop and ask ourselves the question, well, based on what I'm feeling and thinking, I'm about to act in this direction. And usually when it comes to habits, when it comes to, not eating sugar or, not drinking, what is actually happening is the feeling is so great and the urge is so intense that the best choice we can make in that moment is to head down the same old path to find relief. That's essentially what we're searching for, a relief from the feeling, a relief from the urge. And that will always look like the same thing, the habit, doing the act of having a drink or eating the sugar. And really, we feel better. We do feel better in that very, very short moment after we've had it because we have relieved the urge. But that's not taking us towards the metabolic health that we want. And unless we slow down in that moment before we act and really become aware of the choices that we have and say, well, yes, I'm going to, get some immediate relief from that urge if I head down that old path, but it's taking me away. It's taking me away from the metabolic health that I know I deserve. And that just takes practice. And unless you're in the present moment and you consciously choose to go through these, and it's hard. I know it is hard and it feels really, really uncomfortable. But you know what? It doesn't last. The more you choose your new path over your old, you weaken the power of the urge. Every time you choose towards instead of away, you weaken the power of the urge. And nobody can do that for you. And that does not matter how much knowledge you have. Unless you go through those experiences, you won't see that in action and experience that, just incredible breadth of choice. That's what we're looking for. You get to decide everything you do in your life. But if you don't feel that you have that choice and that space, then you won't. And that's not what you want. So we're creating the choice. So that was your stop. That was it. Stop paying attention to all the thoughts and feelings and urges that are taking you away from your health goals. And I've got that bus there to remind you that, I often use the metaphor. Imagine if you have a bus stop at the front of your house. And every time the bus came past, if you think of thoughts as that bus, Would you get on every one of those? I mean, if you did, you'd get nothing done in your life. So see them as optional. You do not have to get on every single thought that comes past. So now I'm going on to the second one, which is the first start. So the three things, we have one stop and we have two starts. So that beautiful picture there is going to explain what I was talking about at the start, the power of your subconscious mind. So most of us kind of think that we are consciously choosing all the things that we're doing in our day, but we're really not. And we know that it's about 95% of what goes on, the choices that we make, come from our subconscious programming and come from those deep beliefs and values that we have built since we were born around where value sits, what's important to us, what keeps us safe, right? Those things are not really about your long-term health. That doesn't matter. It's just about, well, you didn't die when you did it. And so the brain creates a habit and a value, and it will want you to keep doing it over and over again. And that little yellow bit is 5% of your conscious mind. And the goal of what we're doing here, the goal of the work that I do, is expanding that out. So you'll never get to a place where you're conscious in 100% of the time. It just doesn't, it won't ever work. That shouldn't be the goal, because there's a lot of things that we do need, our subconscious mind to just, do for us. For example, if we walk into a house, we want to know every time we walk in that thing with four legs is a chair. We don't want to have to relearn things like that. But if we can expand that out to at least knowing that every time we're about to choose something that is going to impact either negative or positively our metabolic health, we get to get conscious, we get to slow down, and we get to decide which direction that we want to act in. So the start number one is to start creating new habits through consistent action aligned with your towards moves. So going back to that slide I showed you before with the two arrows, you are either acting towards or away good metabolic health. So you have to start building in the new actions that are taking you towards where you want to go. So you can really use your intellectual, your knowledge, if you like, to do that. Because if you sit down and you list all the things that you want to be doing to give you good metabolic health, they're your towards moves. Now, of course, your mind might get really busy and go, oh gosh, that's so much work I have to do. How am I going to fit all that in every day? Well, you know what? You don't have to fit it in every day, but you have to know what matters to you. You have to know what's important to you. And you do it not because of obligation to anything or anybody else, but because you are worth it. And you are worth doing what's important and what matters to bring you or keep you in good metabolic health. So as I said at the start, most thought is deeply subconscious, and we operate mostly on automatic pilot. Automatic pilot is your nemesis. Really, if anything you take from my talk, it is to be a lot more present and a lot more conscious in your day. I guarantee you will see something that will help you shift the value of your habit out there back into you. You just will. If we want to solve a problem, if we want to see something, we have this inbuilt design where all we have to do is get present and we'll see something. I promise you. Your brain, it prefers predictability over what is unknown. So no, as I said, that's why we have this considering cup, because it's going to try and sabotage you all the time. It's not you. It's not self-sabotage. I do not believe in self-sabotage. It's actually a misguided sense of self-love, because everything you do is in a bid to make yourself feel better in the moment. And that is why I said when you act on your urge, you do get a sense of relief. But of course, it's not taking you down the path of where you want to go. Most subconscious thought is deeply conditioned and habitual. And when it comes to lifestyle change, it is an away move. So you really have to get honest with yourself and look at all the choices you're making in your day, each and every day. Not what are the ones you're doing sometimes. I'm talking about what are the ones you are doing consistently, because they are the choices that are going to be having the biggest impact on your metabolic health. So, Tracey, how do we do this? Well, lucky you asked, because I have a few ideas up my sleeve that, again, if you're conscious about this, and put this into practice, you will see something. So I've touched on awareness. Awareness is seriously so important. Without awareness, we can't change anything. So observation and awareness is so important. And to fill in your choice point, so just write 2 arrows. You don't need anything special. Become really aware of the thoughts and feelings and the urges that come before you eat sugar, whatever it is for you. If it's, having sugar at the service station, buying chocolate bars when you go shopping, know where your weak points are. What are all the thoughts and the feelings that are coming up before you act? Fill in the choice point. Become very aware of what triggers you. Triggers are yours, right? It's not the world's job to tiptoe around you. You have to own it. But triggers are incredibly powerful. They will teach you and give you self-awareness if you look, right? Unfortunately, we cannot change the world. It is as it is. If I had it my way, I'd wave a magic wand and get rid of sugar everywhere, but it's not going to happen. There's far too many people invested in it. This is why, my job is empowering you so that you can walk through a sugar minefield and it will have no power over you. But you have to do the work to get to that point. So most choices that are away moves will come from a trigger. So this will be a memory, a smell, a place, a time, or from a stressed state. So searching for relief from the urge, as I said before. So you need to slow down in those moments. I know they're scary. I know they are, because I have felt them over and over and over again over many, many years, and they're very frightening. But that's why I'm hoping to help you understand it so that you're not frightened by it. Instead, what if you could embrace it and be excited that it's actually gifting you with an opportunity to learn about you and to learn to take back control of the choices that you're making. So observe, learn and notice. And I have a picture of that owl there because she is our mascot for my Art of Thriving group. And she's you, because the owls are wise and they have a real beautiful broad sense of awareness. And that's what you've got within you too. If we allow ourselves to act from a stress state, we will be going down that path of away moves. They'll be out of habit. So we all get stressed. Life is stressful. And really what we only ever feel is a sense of a sped up mind in terms of stress. But if we learn to recognize that and know, hey, when I'm really tired, overwhelmed, and stressed, my mind goes, bing, hey, here's a relief. Here's this chocolate bar. Here's a bottle of wine. Here's this, here's that. If we become really, really aware of that's what's going to happen when we feel like that, we get to just not be so frightened of it. Well, of course my mind's going to do that. Of course my mind every day said from 1 o'clock, hey, 5 o'clock's around the corner. Woo-hoo-hoo. Of course it said that, because that was the path that had been created. So once I started to understand this, I started to see, oh, okay, well, I don't have to be frightened of that. I know that's just a function of my mind. It's just a function of the habit that's been created. And if I'm not frightened of it, I could be curious around it instead, and I could watch it, and I could really not run from it anymore. And if I can watch it from a place of distance, I'll see that it comes in, it goes up, and then it actually goes away. If you don't act on it, it always goes away. And while I know it feels like your life is dependent upon it, I know it from very deep experience. It is not. Your life isn't dependent on it. It is just simply the habit that is, and that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to get you to act on it, because your brain doesn't know that you're going to, that the habit is so ingrained that it looks to your brain, if you don't do it, then maybe you will die. So you have to be the one to see, well, actually, no, I'm not going to. And while it feels really uncomfortable, I'll get through it. Could you make a choice when you notice yourself getting overwhelmed, when you notice your feeling of stress? Sometimes in my group, I talk about it like a traffic light. If you're gone, green is in the flow, orange is, hang on, things are starting to and red is, full on in the weeds, panic, stressed. But if you can start to notice in yourself your state of mind and it changing and going up and down, and then you get to decide, once I hit amber, I stop. If I keep going from that place, I'm going to head over the cliff. I'm going to go down that old pathway, guarantee it. But if I pull myself up at that place, as soon as I start to feel it going up and I get present and I breathe, maybe I go outside. Maybe I have a cold shower. Maybe I have a glass of water. Maybe I ring a friend. I just do something to just get myself back into the present moment and bring my nervous system back down again. Because I know from that calmer place, I'm going to be able to see thoughts for what they are, and I'm going to be able to access more choice. Create opportunities in your day to see the space that lives between your thoughts and feelings and your reaction to them. So seeing again, they're not you, they're just occurring within you. It's not who you are. Who you are is incredibly magical, and that lives underneath all of that. And unless we start to see that that's all not who we are, we're not going to remember this incredible essence that lives within us all. The thoughts and feelings are not the problem. The thoughts and feelings and urges are not the problem. You don't need to fear them. It is your reaction to them that is hurting you. So if you could just allow them to be there while you're healing, because they won't last forever, but if you can allow them to be there, watch them from a distance, what could change for you? How could that open up more choice for you? So being in the present moment and creating the space for this increases in self-awareness will seem hard at first. Please expect that. Don't expect any of this to be easy at first. Your mind will whine. Your mind will argue. Your mind will give you excuses not to do it. It won't be fun. So you have to see it, give it a wink, and step right on over it. So just a quick recap. Stop paying attention to the thoughts and feelings that are taking you away. Recap, start one was start creating new habits through consistent action aligned with your towards moves, those moves that are going to take you towards the health that you want. And now my final tip, which is another start, which is actually incredibly important. And that is to start acting like you are worth it. One of the most common things keeping many of us stuck is a lack of self-worth. And I know this because I didn't think I was worth it either. And I would say 99.99% of the people that start working with me don't believe they're worth it either in the beginning. You are worth the effort. You are worthy. You are enough. You are these things. And it's only your attention to the habitual and negative thinking that takes you away from that. So you might be sitting there thinking, oh, well, how am I going to do that? Because really, I don't believe I'm worth it. Because the problem with not believing that you're worth it is it's too easy to give into the excuses and it's too easy to give up. So how do we do it? Well, start acting in loving and kind ways to yourself, even if you don't feel like it. I had to do this. I did not feel like eating well, cooking for myself, shopping for myself. I looked after my kids as best I could, but I didn't feel like doing that for myself. So I had to act in those ways, even though I knew in my deep in my heart, I didn't feel it yet. So please don't wait for that feeling of I'm worth it to change your behavior. Change your behavior first. Start acting and treating yourself as though you are your best friend, because you are. The subconscious beliefs can only change with action. So you remember at the start I said how so many of us have a love and a value and a comfort in chocolate and sugary foods because of how it's been conditioned and how we've been brought up in this modern world. Well, That value may still sit in there for some time, but when you start acting as though that value sits in you, that will change that story. And over time, that will become the way that you act. And it won't feel like a choice anymore. It'll just be, well, why would I put, stuff that's damaging in my body when I know who I am and I know that I'm worth it? Feelings and deep beliefs shift with action. They don't shift with you thinking about it. You have to understand that. If you're sitting in a feeling that you don't like, getting up and moving, getting up and doing something that is loving for you will automatically shift the feeling. It's an incredible system that we have. We just need to understand it. Don't wait for the feeling to shift first. It will never come. You will wait a lifetime. So please don't wait for one morning to wake up and magically feel worth it. If you don't feel worth it now, you have to change your action. And once you change your action and align it with worth, the feelings will come along with it, I promise. Towards moves are loving. Moves away, moves are not. It is loving to eat well. It is loving to move. It is loving to be outside in nature. It's loving to create time for yourself. Choosing love for yourself and for others, to be present, to be mindful, to act from love. Please, you can do all that today. You just have to step over the fact that you don't feel like that yet. And trust me, with the change in the action, the feelings will come because it is a choice. And one you can consciously make every single day, no matter how many times you've innocently chosen from lack, because you just didn't know that untouched essence lived within you. You have forgotten because it's kind of been beaten out of all of us through life. We grow up and someone says, oh, you're hopeless at that, or you can't do that, or whatever. And when our mind just takes it in and it becomes a story that we act from. It's a story. It's not you. It's not who you are. So just a reminder, you don't have to do it all at once either, but you just have to do something. Just choose to do something different from what you did yesterday. But you do have to do it. As I said at the start, no one can do this for you. I can be there. People can be there. You can have incredible support beside you. But this is an internal experience and nobody can get into your head to do it. So please, you have to be the one to embrace it. So at the end of each day, these are just a couple of things to finish that I do every single day. And I will continue to do every single day for, while I'm blessed to be here. But they allow me to remember who I am. They allow me to know that I have choice. At the end of each day, reflect. What loving choices, what loving moves did I make for me today? Breathe them in. Don't rush off from them. One of the biggest things I see in my work is that we find it so hard to be proud of ourselves. Please learn to be proud of yourself. Don't wait for anybody else to do it. No one's going to do it. Everyone's too busy in their own lives. You need to do it yourself. Yes, I did choose to nourish myself today by going and buying myself some beautiful steak and cooking it up, instead of falling for that, oh, I'm too tired and getting Uber Eats or just having a pizza or something like that. Really become aware of it and breathe it in, because that helps your subconscious story change as well. Where did I make a choice out of habit from my past that looked loving in the moment because I was searching for relief, but it really wasn't? Learn from it. We all do it. And don't hide from it either. I know it looks shameful and we're so embarrassed or we're so ashamed when we do it, but we're human beings. And let me tell you, I did it hundreds of times when I was learning. And I tell my group, I expect you to do this. You need to expect yourself to do it too. It doesn't make you a suboptimal human being. It just shows you that you're a human being. But if you can share it, if you can talk about it, if you can reflect on it, and if you can learn from it, I guarantee you it will lessen the number of times that you fall down. What can I see I could do differently next time? Be kind, be compassionate. Don't be hard on yourself. At the start of each day, cultivate your conscious mind. The start of each day is incredibly powerful. It is a gift. No matter what happened yesterday, you have today. Greet the day with love and gratitude, both for it and for yourself. Whether you feel like it or not, gratitude is a practice. Gratitude is not a thought. Gratitude is not a feeling. It is a conscious being. It's a conscious choice to, yes, embrace the start of each day and be grateful that you have it and it's yours and that you get to choose how you make that day for you. You are here, which means you have opportunities. Yesterday has gone, tomorrow hasn't come. Today is all you have. How will you choose to be in it? What loving choices can you choose towards yourself and others? Be in the moment as often as you can. Get out of that head chatter and into your life. It is a practice as well. I promise you, that's not something that you can just snap your fingers and be able to do. Particularly if you're so used to being up in your head for so long and listening to everything that your mind says. It's so much more peaceful being in life rather than in your head. I can tell you from experience. It will shine a light on the fact that you do have a choice. Getting present, cultivating this consciousness at the start of every day. So just a quick recap and then I'm almost done. So the stop paying attention to all the thoughts and the feelings that are taking you away from where you want to go. Start one was creating new habits, right? So you know very easily what your away moves are, guarantee it. They're pretty easy. We tend to know what they are. But what are the towards moves that you want to start or stop doing? Continue to do. Maybe they're things you want to do more of. Maybe they're new things that you want to do. You might have a list of 20 things. Fantastic. You won't be able to do 20 things at once. Start with one. And the recap for start two was act like you are worth it. So one more thing, Roxana, just to finish, I just wanted to share with you all a little story that has been really powerful in my group. So it's very quick, but it's called the Swamp Story. So imagine you're an intrepid explorer and you're an archaeologist actually, and you've been told that 5 days trek away is a land where nobody has ever excavated, and in that land is your ancestors. So you decide that there is nothing more that you want to do than to head out onto this, adventure to find this land, to be the first one to uncover your ancestors. So you're traveling along and you come to a swamp, but oh my goodness, you hate water. And in that swamp is leeches. It's dark, it's murky, it's muddy, it's disgusting. But you've got a choice. Your feet are at the water's edge. You can either turn back and head back to the comfort of what you know and miss out on that opportunity to be the first to uncover this incredibly rich place where your ancestors were born. Or you can choose to head on through the swamp. And you're going to know you're not going to enjoy it. You're going to hate it. And you know what? You don't have to enjoy it. Please stop searching for everything, but to being comfortable. If you want to get somewhere, you're going to have to go through discomfort if you want to get somewhere new. So you decide to go through it, but you know you're not going to enjoy it. But the fact that you made that step and you went into that swamp meant that you got there. You got to that place where you want to be. So I hope you can kind of see the metaphor in that. If you want to change your habits, you have to go through the swamp. You have to get to that point and see, I can either keep heading down the same path that is familiar, but it won't ever get me where I want to be. It won't ever get me to that place. Or I can choose to go down and go through the swamp. And I'm not going to like it. Yeah, it's going to feel really uncomfortable and I'm going to be scared. But I'm going to know that once I get through that and I get to the other side, I'm going to get exactly where I want to be. And that's just my little page If you enjoyed what I have to say and you're interested, I play a lot on social media, just Instagram, really, the Health and Healing Coach, but you're welcome to reach out and connect. But I really, really hope that there was something that you can take away from this talk today. Thank you very much.
I think there was so much to take away. There were so many goosebump moments. There were so many aha moments. I think I have to watch this over and over and stop and play and stop and play because there was so much. I was going to ask you questions, and there's you covered it all. And what I liked most at the end, the swamp story, change is scary.
Yeah.
You are comfortable even when you're in pain. You're comfortable because you know your pain.
Yes.
And then taking a step towards something that's unknown and risking being in more pain, but then maybe getting true relief and health like you and I did. And so that was an awesome way to finish actually the presentation. But yeah, all these tools, the considering cup, the choice points, and it was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much.
Oh,
I did
thank
actually make
you.
a few notes, and I just want to see if I, yeah, taking responsibility consciously, because it's not for most people who got into this situation, it's not their fault. But to
No.
get out, it's their responsibility. They have to do it. What else did I write? The relief. Yes, that's practicing awareness. So what I also thought was, because you went through this and you have a like personal relationship to the struggles, that's why this resonates so much more with our viewers. You lived it, and you know there is a light, and there is a way out. So I'm just blown away. That was an incredible presentation.
Well, thanks, Roxana. It is. I think, you know, if I don't want to talk too much about the lived experience, I suppose, because I do get emotional. But I think I'm very grateful that I did have what I had, because I would never be where I am today if it wasn't for the struggles, and if it wasn't for, you know, sitting in what looks like the dark, you know, in that pit, in that hole, not knowing if I was ever going to get out. You know, heart of hearts, I've been there so many times, and for it was such a long time, but there is a way out. And even if all people take away from the presentation is that there's hope, and maybe today you don't feel ready to take responsibility and do the work, but you have to know that no one's going to come and do it for you. And the sooner you do take hold of that, the sooner you will see the light, and you'll start to see, yeah, there is a way out. And you take 2 steps out, and my gosh, you get knocked back and you fall back in again. But that's what we all do. It's the path of healing.
Right.
It's never linear. You know, it takes time, and I'm still on it. You know, I'm lucky I don't fall in the same holes now. They're kind of different holes, but I still get tripped up by the beliefs of my mind, and, you know, it still happens. But I think essentially where I sit now is that I know anything that's valuable is in me. It's here now where it rightfully belonged. And when we can get to that place, you know, then it's just a different way to live and to sort of step through life. It just feels very different.
Yeah, for those who are at the beginning of their story or of their journey, the most important thing is to know that there is hope. You
Yeah.
lived it, I lived it. So there is hope, and there is happiness. And for me, even looking back at my journey, there's a silver lining because of what I went through, because of what you went through. The silver lining is now we get to share that there's hope. So this goes like full circle. Awesome. Yeah.
Does.
So thank you so much for joining us for this summit. And thank you for sharing your insights. And before we wrap this up, any parting thoughts?
Parting thoughts. Well, I think what you said, Roxana, there is, in not just my talk, but in all of them, there's so much. Don't let the overwhelm stop you. Just take things slowly. Use the benefit of being able to watch the recordings. Go through slowly. Just slow everything down and take it one step at a time. I think that's probably, the best tip, I guess, I could give people to really learn to take responsibility, because it is a learning thing. It's practice, can't sit down at a piano and be a master pianist in one day. You just have to allow yourself to learn. Mistakes
Right.
are inevitable, but that doesn't have to mean that the whole journey is not worth it, because it is worth it every step of the way.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you so much for having me.
Bye bye.